Hey there, scabby scummers and gangers. Crimson Oracle here with another episode of Dome Runners TV. This time we are breaking down the vehicle rules from Book of the Outlands, which gives us all of the generic vehicles that we need to get rolling in the Ash Wastes. I know that I harped on it a lot about the rules not being in the Ash Wastes box or released concurrent with it, and I found it very frustrating, but now that they're here, they're awesome. I do think that there are, plenty of opportunities to expand on what they've put out so far, but this is already a fantastic way to bring vehicles into the game, and we're going to get into the details of how and why and all of that. So I'm excited. I am really looking forward to, getting my Ash Waste gang updated and ready to go out the door. I will be showing some pictures of their vehicle along with a few other vehicles that I've written up at the end of the video. Those vehicles will actually be available at the Nova Open for players to play with if they are not bringing their own vehicles. So prepare to check that out. And of course, I'm going to give you a rundown of all of the different rules covering the upgrades, the war gear, and of course the vehicle chassis that we have access to. I am looking forward to seeing all of the community's amazing work building their own versions of the vehicles in this system. And I have done a little bit of work on that front myself. So we will be showing off various things at the end, and I look forward to everyone having a chance to take a look. Upgrades are finite. You have a certain number of upgrade slots on each chassis, and currently there isn't a way to extend them. I could see something in that vein being added in the future, though. We'll see. Upgrades can be applied to 3 different areas of the vehicle: the body, the drive, and the engine. Body upgrades currently are as follows. There's ablative armor, which is rare 7, 15 credits, and it makes it so the first non-glancing hit the vehicle takes to its body counts as a glancing hit. You're going to notice there are a few different upgrades like this to protect the various important components of your vehicle. They're relatively affordable and can definitely make the difference in, a crucial moment when someone might blow your vehicle up early. So it is definitely worth considering taking all of these. The next option is the crash cage, which is common and 15 credits. And it's the same sort of deal. The first non-glancing hit the vehicle takes to the crew compartment counts as a glancing hit. Also, there are escape hatches, which are common and 10 credits. The lasting injury roll for the vehicle's crew can be re-rolled, but the re-rolled result must be taken, even if it is worse. This is a good one if you are buying expensive crews and you want to keep them alive. Being able to re-roll deaths or severe injuries is definitely nifty. So definitely think about this one. Explosive Ram is rare 9 and 25 credits. The first time this vehicle has a head-on collision, the object it hit takes an extra strength 5, AP -2, D2 hit on top of all the other effects to the same side if it's a vehicle. That is obviously a really fantastic effect. It's a bit pricey, but if you consider if you're using your vehicle for ramming a lot, which is definitely a very specific way to run one, then the explosive ram can be a really fun way to sort of spice that up. The extra armor, which is common and 25 credits, will give +1 toughness on all facings. This is a really good buy for the lighter vehicles where, you've got toughness 3 or toughness 4. It's definitely a bit more insurance to have it up in the 4 or 5 range from there. It's unfortunate there isn't another way to increase that toughness more. I think it would be interesting to have sort of more or sort of a trade-off system where you could increase toughness, but it would affect speed or handling or both, that sort of thing. And I'm hoping that maybe they expand on that with future upgrades. There is also a RAM, which is a common upgrade, and it costs 15 credits. It increases the strength, AP, and damage of impacts from the vehicle in the front arc by 1, which is a really solid upgrade, again, if you're planning to use your vehicle to do a lot of ramming. The reinforced armor is rare 9 and 20 credits, and that gives you an extra hull point. This is obviously a really nifty upgrade if you are going to be, taking a lot of damage. 20 credits essentially for an extra wound on a vehicle is a serious good deal. So definitely try to fish for that or take it if you can take it on your vehicle. Rock Grinder Ram, rare 9, 40 credits. This increases the strength, AP, and damage of impacts in the front arc by 2. It's essentially, a mega ram. It's a good bit more expensive, but it does, make your vehicle that much deadlier to use for ramming. So obviously, if you intend to use it for that kind of stuff, it is a must buy. There is speed fins, which are rare 8 and 10 credits. If it doesn't make any turns during its activation, the vehicle can increase its movement by 1 inch. It cannot be taken by walkers. This is a nifty one because if you are going to be making a big flat out move or something that doesn't allow you to make turns without having to pass a loss of control test, it is going to make you, significantly faster since, you're going to be making, potentially 3 moves. 1 inch times 3 becomes 3 inches. That's a pretty substantial increase on the vehicle, and it's very cheap. So definitely worth considering. There is, of course, the option to add a transport bed. This is a platform on the vehicle where passengers do not have to check for falling off when the vehicle moves. There isn't any guidance about how large you can go with these. I would say that try to keep it in proportion with the vehicle that's carrying it, but don't be afraid to have fun with it and put a nice big bed on your custom vehicles. The stuff that is using the generic rules that you'll see ahead, I definitely recommend sticking to something that's similar in proportion to the vehicle that you're counting it as, just for everyone's sake. It makes it a little bit better for everyone. But I do think that the 2 vehicles with that, were sort of designed prior to being intended to use to carry passengers don't have that much transport space. So I would still even kind of expand out the back of the Ridge Runner or the Rock Grinder myself. So that's how I feel about the transport beds. Other views may differ. There is the option to purchase a transport cage for your vehicle. It's an enclosed portion of a vehicle with at least 1 entry or exit point. Fighters can deploy embarked on a transport cage if the vehicle deploys on the board, but not if it's in reserves. When embarked, they are off the board and cannot be targeted or use abilities. If a vehicle is wrecked while embarked, place them within 1 inch of the vehicle's final position. Any models that can't be placed are treated as going out of action. Any that are take a Strength 4 AP nil D1 hit. Friendly models can perform the following action: embark, basic. Models within 1 inch of the cage's access point can embark. Remove them from the board and they use a space in the cage. Disembark, basic, place the model within 1 inch of an access point and more than 1 inch from enemy fighters. For the small transport cage, they are common, 20 credits, and capacity 3. For the large transport cage, it is rare 7, 50 credits, and capacity 6. These are really nifty if you have the need to move sort of less armored, less durable troops around on the battlefield. It gives you the chance to stash them away and keep them alive, which is a lot of fun. And it incentivizes your opponent attacking your heavy vehicle, presumably that you're, putting this upgrade on. There is the Turtleback, which is rare 8 and 10 credits. If the vehicle rolls, it is not automatically destroyed. Instead, remove 2 hull points and write the vehicle. This is definitely a useful upgrade on your bigger, more expensive vehicles. Obviously, you need to have a lot of hull points to make that 2 hull point penalty worth it, as otherwise you're very likely to already be in trouble by the time you roll and not benefit from, surviving, because those 2 hull points will be your last. So this is an upgrade that works really well on your more expensive vehicles, but I wouldn't necessarily use it everywhere. You can also purchase additional weapon hard points. They are rare 8 and they cost 40 credits base and come with a single firing arc and can either be crew or passenger fired depending on your preference. If you would like to add additional firing arcs, they cost 15 credits each. So a fully upgraded weapon hard point that fires in all directions costs 85 credits on a custom vehicle. These can hold basic, special, or heavy weapons and can be swapped with stash weapons in between games. This is really nice because a lot of the vehicles are pretty low on the hardpoint front. So being able to sacrifice a body upgrade in order to put a new gun on your vehicle is definitely nifty. The only downside is that 40 credits is pretty expensive and you only get one direction out of it, let alone having, to need to pay 15 credits for each additional direction that it shoots. So it is a useful upgrade that is a bit pricey, and you will probably see them taken sparingly as a result. And finally, there is the weapon stash, which is rare 7 and costs 20 credits. And this means the vehicle counts as an ammo cache, meaning anyone riding on top of it can reload their weapons as though they are at an ammo cache, which is a really nifty upgrade. It's 20 credits. That's not that expensive. And if it's a transport, you will likely be able to use it quite often, justifying the price almost immediately. So definitely a recommend on this one. Drive upgrades are also available. There is all-wheel steering, which is common and costs 10 credits. You get +1 handling, and it can't be taken by skimmers or walkers since they don't have wheels. This is a very affordable upgrade, and getting +1 to handling means you're just going to be more likely to take risks on your vehicle, which is always fun. There is the anti-grav generators, which are rare 10 or rare 8 for Van Sar and cost 50 credits. This allows the vehicle to replace their locomotion type with skimmer. These are a lot of fun for those people who want to do, kind of a thematic vehicle that has all of the rules that would be appropriate for it. So having a skimmer that you can roll around on is, of course, something a lot of us have always wanted. It is, however, pretty expensive for, an upgrade that doesn't actually do all that much to protect your vehicle. So I don't know. It's definitely good, to have it as an option, but it's, I think, more of a thematic choice than one that seriously changes the game for your vehicle. There are emergency brakes. Those are common and cost 10 credits. When this vehicle moves due to a loss of control test, half the distance. It cannot be taken by a walker, of course. This is really nifty because losing control can often put you way out of position. So going, half the distance allows you to recover a little bit better. So that's a good upgrade, very reasonable price. Pneumatic radials, rare 8, 30 credits. Does not suffer movement penalties for difficult terrain, can only be taken by wheeled vehicles. So the existence of this upgrade means that there is really no reason to take the -1 movement penalty for your vehicle being tracked, which is kind of a weird thing. Because obviously I'm going to build some tracked vehicles, but the fact that you can get a 30 credit upgrade that allows you to get the exact same benefit without the hit to movement, where, winning races is kind of an important part of this game, a part of the Ashwash missions. I don't know. I'm not sure that I'm as likely to, want to take that hit. But that's my view. I got to go fast. Other people might take a different view and think like, I want to avoid, having to spend that 30 credits. So I guess we could have different minds about it. Power steering, that is rarity 8 and 30 credits. The vehicle can make 2 turns of up to 90 degrees before, during, or after their movement instead of 1, and can't be taken by skimmers or walkers. So obviously that's a nifty upgrade if you want your vehicle to be more agile. I do not know whether it stacks with the agile rule. I would say, based off the wording for both of them, no, it wouldn't stack. So I would just keep that in mind personally, but maybe an argument could be made that it does. There is the redundant drive system, which is rarity 7 and 15 credits. The first non-glancing hit to the drive is treated as a glancing hit, and it can't be taken by a walker. Tire claws, which are common and cost 10 credits. They increase handling by 1 and can only be taken by wheeled vehicles. This is a solid one, since handling checks are, again, pretty important. There are, of course, 2 drive upgrades that can allow you to increase your handling if you want to do a lot of stunts, but they do prevent you from taking certain other things like pneumatic radials if you try to take both. So that is something to think about. There are, of course, also engine upgrades. The Archaeotech automatic reactor is rare 10 and costs 40 credits. It increases the movement characteristic by 2 inches, but when wrecked, all models within 3 inches of the vehicle suffer a strength 5, AP -1, damage 1 hit, and the vehicle is removed from the board. That's kind of a fun, almost not quite benefit, since it could definitely hurt your own guys as well. But the effect is relatively constrained. It's only 3 inches around the vehicle. So if you know your vehicle has an Archaeotech automatic reactor, you'll probably give it a wide berth and probably won't put many passengers in it. The easy turnover is a common upgrade and 5 credits. It adds +1 to all checks to restart the engine. This is kind of a no-brainer if you have room in the engine for the upgrade, as it's so inexpensive, and being able to restart your engine can be really clutch at times. There is the engine shell, which is rare 9, 15 credits. You treat the first non-glancing hit to the engine as a glancing hit. There is the gas promethium engine, which is rare 10 and 25 credits. When it moves, all models within 1 inch of any point in the path of its movement suffers a strength 3, AP -1, damage 1 hit with the blaze characteristic. So your vehicle can literally spew flames. The gliss injector is rare 8 and 20 credits. Once per game during activation, the vehicle can increase movement by 4 inches until the end of its activation. Obviously, when used in conjunction with ability to move 3 times in a turn, that can add potentially 12 inches to your movement, which is absolutely astounding. So that can definitely be useful if you have room for it, once again, in the engine. There is the nitro burner, which is a common upgrade, 15 credits, and adds +1 to movement. This is one people will take a lot, because it's a inexpensive upgrade that provides a really important benefit. So I personally tend to take it automatically, just because it allows my vehicles to stay competitive in those road races. And that's what I'm really looking for out of my vehicles performance wise. There's the plasma coil engine, which is rare 9 and 25 credits. When activated, this vehicle can increase movement by 2 inches. If so, at the end of the activation, roll a d6. If it's a 1, you lose a hull point from the plasma coil overheating. That is a pretty reasonable trade-off, I think. It can definitely come back to bite you, and not something that I would take on a vehicle that only has 1 hull point, obviously, but definitely a nice thematic upgrade to take. There are smoke vents, which are common and cost 25 credits. All range attacks are -1 to hit. The effect is ignored by anything that ignores the smoke trait. So that last bit does mean that you're probably going to have that ignored more than you usually would when you're playing in Ash Waste, because it's much more likely that people take respirators and photo goggles in the Ash Waste. Vehicles also have access to a selection of war gear, generally limited to 1 instance per vehicle. War gear cannot be combined sometimes, and it will say so in the description. There is the boarding ramp, which is common and 15 credits. Fighters attempting to jump to another vehicle within 3 inches add 1 to their initiative check. So that is definitely helpful if you're planning on using your vehicle to get close to your opponents and offload its passengers. There are body spikes, which are common and cost 10 credits. Anytime a fighter on a vehicle with body spikes that isn't in a transport area moves, take an initiative check. If they fail, they suffer a strength 3, AP minus, damage 1 hit. This is okay, I guess. It kind of depends on what you're designing your vehicles like and how often you expect them to be jumped on. But they can be a, nifty upgrade if you are putting it on the right vehicle, or if you just want to, have specific rules on a vehicle that you happen to have modeled spikes on. So there's also that. There's the booby trap fuel tank war gear, which is rare 9 and costs 10 credits. If this vehicle is wrecked, roll a d6 every time a fighter moves within 3 inches. On a 5-up, every model within 5 inches takes a strength 6, AP -1, damage 1 hit with blaze. Remove the vehicle and make an extra roll on the lasting damage table for it. This is a fun one, very thematic, definitely reminiscent of Mad Max or what have you. The only downside is that you have to take that extra damage roll, which is going to be expensive on what's already almost certainly a custom vehicle. So there is that. I guess it wouldn't be that bad to take that as a worker item on the non-custom vehicles, though, since they're pretty cheap to repair. There's the Caltrop launcher, which is rare 7 and costs 20 credits. The vehicle can make a basic action, lay Caltrop. The vehicle moves forward its movement speed without making any turns. At any point in this movement, you can place up to 3 markers. Each is placed in the rear arc within an inch of the vehicle. Any vehicle that goes within 1 inch of a Caltrop marker must make a loss of control test at -2. This is kind of a pain to actually use, just because you're going to have to be, keeping close eye on all of your Caltrop markers. But this is a really fun one and relatively affordable, and a great way for a fast vehicle to punish people who are behind it. So definitely think of it for those purposes. There are flare launchers, which are common and cost 10 credits. The vehicle can make the following action: launch flares, basic. All models within 12 inches of this vehicle, including the vehicle itself, gain the revealed condition until the end phase of the turn. This is really nifty if you are dealing with a lot of environmental effects that are causing your foes to be obscured. You can kind of take one of your more suicidal vehicles and launch them at the enemy and light everybody up for your shooting to take care of business. There are headlights, which are common and cost 15 credits. When starting their activation, the vehicle can choose to turn the headlights off or on. While they are on, all models within 12 inches in line of sight and in the front arc of the vehicle count as being revealed. The vehicle also counts as being revealed. Again, this is affordable and convenient and a nice way for a vehicle to be kind of a force multiplier for your gang. There is the kill switch, which is rare 7 and costs 15 credits. If the vehicle is wrecked by a hit to the engine, subtract 1 from the lasting damage table. This is a relatively cheap and nifty insurance against taking serious damage on your vehicle, so it's worth considering. There is the mine layer, which is rarity 8 and costs 35 credits. And you can also get extra mines, which are rarity 7 and cost 20 credits. So once per battle, the vehicle can make a action lay mine basic. And for each extra mine that you purchase, you can make it an additional time. The lay mine basic ability allows the vehicle to move forward up to its movement without making any turns. At any point during the move, place a melt-a-bomb within 1 inch of the vehicle's rear arc. It cannot be triggered until after the action is completed. So this is obviously a pretty intense response to your opponents, but it can be very nifty if you're on, sort of a bottleneck and you want to be able to really punish your opponent for following you. Melt-a-bombs are no joke. They will seriously take vehicles and people alike out. So I definitely like this one a lot, even if it's on the pricey side. Smoke launchers, common, and they cost 20 credits. The vehicle can make the following action: launch smoke, basic, place 3 markers within 2 inches of the vehicle, treat them like smoke grenades. That, of course, includes them dissipating at the end of each turn and blocking line of sight. This can be really useful if your opponent doesn't have a lot of infrasights and such, but it really depends on whether that is something that you're seeing a lot of. So with my Delac, almost every fighter at this point has an infrasight. So it would not necessarily behoove you to take smoke launchers against that particular gang, for example. But I think that they can definitely be a lot of fun and are a good thing to play with. There are wheel scythes, which are common and 20 credits. If the vehicle moves within 1 inch of a model, it takes a strength 3 AP dash damage 1 hit. If they are a fighter, they are then pinned. This, of course, can only be taken on wheeled vehicles. So it is a expensive upgrade, but the ability to cut people down while driving around them is potentially useful. It really depends on whether that's something that you find yourself doing a lot in your games. Every vehicle has a crew. You can purchase them once, and no matter the number of crew actually on the model, they can be equipped with pistols and war gear, though by the rules they can only fire weapons with the sidearm trait, so they cannot actually use a hand flamer even though they can take one. And they have their own stats and can take injuries or be killed, as mentioned in my video on the core vehicle rules. Currently, we have 4 crew in the book. There's the Orlok Iron Rider, which is 35 credits, has ballistic skill 4 up, leadership 6 up, cool 6 up, willpower 7 up, and intelligence 7 up. And they have the gang fighter rule, which is nifty because it means they count towards the core of your gang. There is the generic Scum Racer. They are 20 credits and they will work for anybody except nomads. Their ballistic skill 4 up, leadership 8 up, cool 8 up, willpower 8 up, and intelligence 8 up. And this is actually the only way currently that you can hire Hive Scum for your gang as permanent members of your gang, other than the enforcers list that came out in White Dwarf a few months ago. There's also the Guild of Coin crew, which costs 40 credits, has a ballistic skill of 4 up, leadership of 7 up, cool of 6 up, willpower of 6 up, and intelligence of 7 up. And there is the Squat Gearhead, which costs 40 credits, has ballistic skill 4 up, leadership 7 up, cool 6 up, willpower 6 up, and intelligence 7 up. And again, has the gang fighter rule, which allows them to count towards the core of the gang. It's very likely that we'll see additional crew stat lines in future publications, but until we do, these are the crews that everyone can choose from, essentially, unless you are one of the 2 gangs that has gang-specific crew, then you're going to be taking between Scum and Guild of Coin crew, which the main difference between them is just a little bit better psych stats on the Guild of Coin crew, which means that they'll perform better under pressure. So that makes sense. Now, when it comes to vehicles, you have both custom vehicles as an option and sort of generic vehicles based off of the core of the Gene Stealer Cult kits, plus the Cargo 8 Ridge Hauler. So there are 4 standardized vehicles based on existing GW kits. There's the Wolf Quad, the Ridge Runner, the Rock Grinder, and the Cargo 8 Ridge Hauler. These have a more limited set of upgrades that they're allowed to take and slightly different stats. They're also easier to repair due to not having the ramshackle rule. While their upgrades are limited, these vehicles can still take wargear and weapons from the trading post and black market during the course of the campaign, so don't forget that you can do that. First up is the Wolf Quad at 70 credits. This is the lightest of the basic vehicles. It has 8-inch movement, which is really nice. It has toughness 3 all around and 2 hull points and a 5-up handling and save roll. It has the agile rule, which allows it to make 2 turns during a move, simple action. It is wheeled and has a single weapon hardpoint that has the front and left arcs. It has 1 body and drive upgrade slot and 2 engine slots. It's limited to the following upgrades at creation: reinforced armor and speed fins for the body, all-wheeler steering and emergency brake for the drive, and easy turnover, nitro burner, and smoke vents for the engine. At creation, it can take the following weapons, which can be upgraded later: heavy flamer, heavy stubber, mining laser. And at creation, it can take the following wargear, headlights, and flare launchers. This is a very kind of risky vehicle to take just because of its low toughness, low hull points. It is a very fast vehicle and has the potential to be one of the fastest around, depending on what you put into it, but it will be expensive and break very easily. So it's worth considering keeping this vehicle cheap and numerous instead. There is, of course, a larger vehicle chassis, the Ridge Runner, which is 95 credits. A medium-sized basic vehicle, this chassis has 7-inch movement, toughness 5 on the front and 4 on the sides and rear, 3 hull points, 7-up handling, and a 5-up save. It's wheeled and has a crew-operated weapon hardpoint with front arc on the hull and passenger-operated firepoint on the rear platform with the front arc. It has a small transport area in back, 2 body upgrades, 3 drive upgrades, and 2 engine upgrades available. It's limited to the following upgrades ever being taken. It cannot take upgrades from the trading post. It has, for the body, speed fins, escape hatches, and crash cage. For the drive, there's all-wheel steering, emergency brakes, tire claws, and redundant drive systems. And for the engine, there is the engine shell, gas promethium engine, and nitro burner upgrades. At creation, it can take a mining laser, missile launcher, mortar, or twin-linked heavy stubber, and it can also take headlights, flare launchers, and kill switch. The Ridge Runner is a good vehicle. Its main drawback is that you can't purchase any upgrades that will increase the armor or hull points. But even still, toughness 5 on the front and 4 on the sides and rear with 3 hull points and a 5-up save is significantly better than the light vehicle options in terms of durability. So it's worth considering as sort of a workhorse vehicle. The fact that it has a little bit of passenger space means that it can be used for transporting, one or two VIPs, but it's going to be hard to fit very many models in the back of that tiny vehicle. So it is not the ideal platform to use as a transport, for example. There is the Rock Grinder, which is 145 credits. A large truck. The Rock Grinder has a 5-inch move, toughness 7 on the front and sides, and 6 on the rear. And it has 4 hull points, 8 up handling, and a 4-up save. It is wheeled and has a crew-operated fire point on its hull with the front and left arcs, and a passenger-operated fire point on the rear platform with the front and right arcs, and a transport area on the back. It has 3 upgrade slots on the body, drive, and engine. It's limited to the following upgrades: body, ablative armor, escape hatches, rock grinder ram, weapon stash. Drive, emergency brake, pneumatic radials, redundant drive system, and tire claws. Engine, easy turnover, engine shell, nitro burner, and smoke vents. At creation, it can take the following weapons: heavy flamer, heavy stubber, mining laser, seismic cannon, and twin-linked autocannon. And for wargear at creation, it can take headlights, flare launchers, and smoke launchers. The Rock Grinder is kind of a mixed bag. The 5-inch movement is pretty rough. It barely moves faster than a Ganger, and it is not like you have a lot of options for upgrading the engine. You have access to the nitro burner to make it movement 6, but you can't purchase any of the other engine types that allow the vehicles to get significantly faster. So it has its limitations. It's very much more designed around, toting a couple of heavy weapons with a bunch of people in the back. And it does do well at that. So it can serve as a sort of convenient platform for getting your people shooting, and it can focus more on driving when it needs to. Next up is the Cargo 8 Ridge Hauler. At 230 credits, this thing is a major investment, especially since you can only take the 40-point Guild of Coin crew. So this thing starts at 270 credits before you put anything on it. A massive cargo transport vehicle. It has 7-inch movement, front toughness of 9, and side and rear toughness of 8, 6 hull points, 7 up handling, and a 3-up save. It's a wheeled vehicle. It has transport areas on the sides, and if it isn't carrying cargo, it also has transport in the back on the flatbed. It has a crew-fired hardpoint on the cab with the front and right arcs. It can take up to 4 upgrades on its body, its drive, and its engine. Its upgrades are limited to the following: body, ablative armor, crash cage, escape hatches, reinforced armor, weapon stash. Drive, all-wheel steering, emergency brakes, powered steering, tire claws. Engine, easy turnover, engine shell, nitro burner, and smoke vents. The Ridge Hauler in each trailer can take either a Munitorium armored container or a Promethium tank. Either way, the cargo generates income for the player who controls it. You get D3 times 10 credits per cargo when your vehicle is not wrecked at the end of the game. In contrast, though, your opponent gets D6 times 10 credits anytime your vehicle is wrecked on the board. The Munitorium container adds 2 fire points with all facings and serves as an ammo cache, which is a pretty nifty benefit for being 50 credits. The Promethium tank, on the other hand, costs 30 credits, and it removes the scarce trait from flame weapons on models that are within 3 inches, or gives the plentiful trait if the model didn't have scarce on their flame weapon. The Promethium tank also grants an extra D6 times 10 credits to the owner if the vehicle is not wrecked. Additionally, anytime a vehicle with a Prometheum load takes a hit, roll a d6 and add the weapon's strength. If the total is greater than 9, center a 5-inch blast on the point closest to the attacker on the vehicle. All fighters touched by the blast must pass an initiative check or be blinded. If the weapon had the blaze special rule, instead, it's an initiative check or be affected by the blaze condition. A ridge hauler can take up to 5 trailers. Each adds 5 hull points and can take a cargo. The trailer is part of the ridge hauler and it cannot be separated from the vehicle. There isn't guidance on pivoting the vehicle, but making 90-degree turns from the middle of the vehicle seems a bit unworkable. I would personally pivot the cab and just let the trailers follow and not keep them rigidly in line as a straight vehicle. You may also run into deployment issues as you add trailers to your ridge hauler, as it may not fit in the deployment area that you've been given. I'm not entirely sure how to address that. It's kind of a tough one. I would say for sure pivoting the sort of connection points for the trailers is at least one way to do it, even if it can be a little bit silly looking at times, because fitting into the deployment zone is kind of a necessary step. At creation, it can take a grenade launcher, storm bolter, or heavy stubber as its weaponry, and it can take booby-trapped fuel tanks, flare launchers, headlights, and smoke launchers from the wargear list. The Cargo 8 is obviously an impressive vehicle, and it's kind of funny to say because I'm taking one in my list that I'm building for my current campaign, but I actually think it is kind of limited by the fact that it's so expensive and is so fixed in how it works. It just doesn't give you that much opportunity for customization. But that said, I think it's a great platform for doing counts as it allows very, very large vehicles to get the kind of hull points and fire points that they deserve. So I do think that it is a good baseline rule for doing proxies, but I think that the community that you're playing with will have to kind of weigh in on how much they want to let you experiment with using things as a Cargo 8 ridge hauler. But personally, I'm looking forward to playing with my 4-story church on treads for the upcoming campaign. I will show some pictures of that at the end of the video. In addition to the basic vehicle profiles, players can customize vehicles of their own. There are 4 profiles for custom vehicles currently. My hope is that they're going to expand on these in the future. There are light, medium, heavy, and walkers currently. Because they all have the jury-rigged rule, they cost double to repair anytime you need repairs. There is the light vehicle, which costs 50 credits. It has 7-inch movement, toughness 3 on all sides, 1 hull point, 6 up handling, and 5 up armor. This is a fragile addition to your gang. It's even less durable than the already fairly squishy Wolf Quad or the Orlock Buggy. It comes with 1 weapon hardpoint that you can choose the direction of and whether it's crew or passenger fired. It can be wheeled or tracked. If it's tracked, subtract 1 from its movement. And it has 1 body upgrade slot and 2 for drive and engine. At creation, it has access to the body upgrades crash cage, escape hatches, extra armor, ram, and transport bed. It has the drive upgrades, all-wheel steering, emergency brake, and tire claws, and the engine upgrades, easy turnover, nitro burners, and smoke vents. Additionally, you are limited to the following weapons at creation: autogun, lasgun, grenade launcher, long las, harpoon launcher, heavy stubber, and mining laser. And the following war gear is available at creation: boarding ramp, body spikes, flare launchers, headlights, smoke launchers, and wheel sights. Medium vehicles start at 130 credits. They get movement 6 inches, toughness 5 on all sides, 3 hull points, 7 up handling, and a 4 up save, and 1 weapon hardpoint. It can be wheeled or tracked, but if it's tracked, subtract 1 from movement. It has 2 upgrade slots for the body and drive and 3 for its engine. This is a very useful chassis. I think that we will see a lot of custom vehicles use this chassis. It is a little bit tougher and more flexible than the Ridge Runner, which is its sort of direct competition. It's a little bit more expensive, but I really appreciate the toughness 5 on all sides and the ability to take armor upgrades if that's the direction I want to go in for it. And the 3 upgrade slots on the engine allow it to upgrade to, some of the beefier stuff to really increase your movement speed. So this allows your custom medium vehicle to be extremely quick on the tabletop. Of course, they have access to the same upgrades on the body. It's the crash cage, escape hatches, extra armor, ram, transport bed, and for the drive, it's all-wheel steering, emergency brakes, and tire claws. And for the engine, it's easy turnover, nitro burners, and smoke vents. And of course, you are limited to the following weapons: autogun, las gun, grenade launcher, long las, harpoon launcher, heavy stubber, and mining laser. And you're limited to the following wargear creation: boarding ramp, body spikes, flare launchers, headlights, smoke launchers, and wheel size. Heavy vehicles, 175 credits. Movement 5 inches, toughness 7 on all sides, 4 hull points, 8 up handling, and a 4 up save. It has 2 weapon hard points and it can be wheeled or tracked, but if it's tracked, reduce movement by 1 inch. It has 4 upgrade slots for body, 3 for drive, and 2 for engine. The heavy vehicle is an interesting one. It's extremely slow, but it is very durable, but it's not quite as durable, or, the Cargo 8 sort of fulfills the role of the extremely durable and quick vehicle, whereas this is more of your slow, plodding kind of vehicle, which I think has a place in the game, of course. And 2 weapon hardpoints to start is really useful. 4 upgrade slots. Imagine you could potentially put 6 weapon hardpoints on this thing and just go absolutely nuts with, adding lots and lots of DACA or whatever. There are, of course, a lot of different ways that you could build this particular vehicle. I think it will be a common one to see used for various kinds of transports, especially being able to put, the transport cage or the transport platform on the vehicle, and, modeling your vehicle so that you're able to fit a lot of people. You're definitely going to see a lot of heavy vehicles used for that. Of course, it has access, again, to the crash cage, escape hatches, extra armor, ram, and transport bed on the body, the all-wheel steering, emergency brakes, and tire claws on the drive, and, of course, the engine upgrades, easy turnover, nitro burners, and smoke vents. And at creation, it's limited to the following weapons: autogun, las gun, grenade launcher, long las, harpoon launcher, heavy stubber, and mining laser. And it's limited to the following war gear: boarding ramp, body spikes, flare launchers, headlights, smoke launchers, and wheel size. And finally, we have the Walker, clocking in at 70 credits. It has a very slow 5-inch movement, very kind of low-end toughness 3 on all sides, 2 hull points, 4 up handling, and a 5 up save. The Walker has 1 hull point and uses Walker as its locomotion type. It has 2 body upgrade slots, 1 for drive and 2 for engine. Unfortunately, the Walker has a bit of a downside in that it just doesn't have the movement that you would want out of a small, cheap platform, but it does allow us to, make conversions of various walkers and give them rules. But it's a little bit tough because, I think a lot of people would like to have a heavier walker option. Even still, it is really nice to have the ability to, use a walker in the game. So it's sort of the kind of thing where I'd like more, please. Give us more variety, give us more support so that we can, convert Invictus walkers or whatever they're called, over to from Space Marines to Necromunda gangs. Like, give us excuses to make these hulking walking monstrosities. A lot of people are, out creating ideas for vehicles. I hope that we get support for the various options that people decide on very soon. Of course, it also has the same limited list, but even less because of being a walker. So you get a crash cage, escape hatches, and extra armor and ram on the body. There are no drive upgrades. And for the engine, you can get the easy turnover, the nitro burners, and the smoke vents. You're limited to the following weapons: auto gun, las gun, grenade launcher, long las, harpoon launcher, heavy stubber, and mining laser, and the following war gear: boarding ramp, body spikes, flare launchers, headlights, and smoke launchers. So, now that we've looked at the rules for the various vehicles, I want to talk a little bit about customizing them for your campaign. So, I know that it's kind of a contentious topic at times, the way house rules interact with the Necromunda rules. There are people out there who really feel like the game shouldn't be, something that is so thoroughly tweaked by arbitrators, but that is the intention of how the game was designed. So I personally like taking that approach to the game. And it turns out that, if you have an arbitrator who's willing to make the tweaks, the Ash Waste vehicles are a lot more flexible starting out. So personally, instead of limiting things to just the upgrades that are listed in custom vehicles, instead of limiting them to just the upgrades that are listed in the creation section, I will limit my players, for example, to being able to buy anything that is common or any guns that are available at the trading post or their house list. Now, this is a bit different from the way that it's written in the book, and that is intentional. I'd like players to be able to do things like incorporate a transport area, or, the transport cage into their vehicle, for example, from the start, or various other upgrades. And I think that the intention with the way that it was written was to keep it in line with ganger progression, so that there's some limits, and then there are things you're looking forward to buy after you start the campaign, and that makes a lot of sense. But when it comes to weapons, I think it is important to allow the gang to equip their vehicle with common weapons and with weapons that are on their trading post, as I think it will have benefits in game to players being able to start with that instead of having to start with their vehicle with temporary guns on it and then take them off and then put new guns on after the first gang. That just doesn't feel narratively like it makes any sense. So that's one change that I would definitely make. I also think that these rules make for a useful toolkit for customizing your vehicles a little bit more. So if you, for example, want to take the walker locomotion and put it on a different vehicle and maybe even change some of the rules about what can or can't be given to walkers, I think that it could be a lot of fun, for example, to take a large vehicle with a transport bed and give it the walker type. So I'm going to be experimenting with how I will point that out and potentially add the walker locomotion type as a option to purchase the way that the anti-grav engines are. So that's another approach that I'm going to try out. I also think that there is a lot of room for adding new upgrades and things that don't quite have rules currently, but which can enhance vehicle build and design. Things like, for example, I think it would be cool to be able to sacrifice some movement in order for a vehicle to get heavier armor, or to jettison some armor and gain a bit more movement, that kind of thing. Having a system that works a little bit more. Yes, Omar. Yes. Shh. Yes. Shh. Having a system that works more like the Goliath gene smithing, where you can take disadvantages and advantages in order to balance things out a little bit more, I think would be a cool addition on top of the existing upgrades. Because while the upgrades are all cool, all they do is just provide a benefit. The only one that comes with any kind of drawback is the custom vehicles taking tracked as their locomotion type. And as I discussed earlier, there's a way to kind of get around that just by paying 30 credits for the pneumatic radials. So it's a ripe area for customization. It gives us a lot of opportunities to make the game our own, which is, I think, what makes Necromunda so great. So I am brainstorming lots of different ways that the house rules can enhance gameplay, but I just wanted to include a little segment talking about it here because I think a lot of people tend to be overwhelmed starting out looking at the rule set and not think about tweaking it to start. But I, of course, am always thinking about tweaking rules. Another thing you might want to consider is using vehicle rules in a campaign that is not an Ash Waste campaign, but instead of having your players actually purchase them as part of their game and have to maintain them and keep them up, instead offer them as a drop-in for certain situations, certain scenarios. This is similar to how I'm using them at the Nova Open. You are able to bring 600 credits of vehicles in Ash Waste scenarios, but they are not part of your gang and you don't have to pay upkeep or any of that stuff. This is a fun way to sort of sprinkle in the vehicle rules without fully committing to, making them part of the gang where they're going to distract from your gang's resources and development and all of that stuff. So I do think that the vehicle rules offer a ton of fun for anyone who is interested in exploring the Ash Waste, but I do agree that it can be a bit of a distraction and a bit time consuming and energy consuming to work on versus just being able to say like, okay, here is a 300 credit truck and a 300 credit car. I'm dropping them in, everybody gets 600 credits for this one scenario. So that's an approach that I would take personally, but I think that everyone has to figure out exactly how much vehicle they want to put into their games. So, it is what it is. In honor of this episode, I wanted to go ahead and put together some of my own vehicles having rules. So I went ahead and snapped pictures of a bunch of my personal collection and then sat down and kind of wrote rules for these things that I had already created. So I'm just going to run through and give you the sort of rundown on them. So the first of the vehicles that I'm showing off is the Wolf Quad that I built using the bubble head helmet that kind of looks like a spaceman. So I went ahead and kept it pretty much stock, except even with adding a mining laser to it. So it comes out to 215 credits with a scum driver for the basic Wolf Quad and mining laser. And you could, of course, add some extra gear on top in order to, up its capabilities a little bit. But the Wolf Quad has a little bit less options than the custom light vehicle. So I just went ahead and kept it stock just to kind of get an idea of what the baseline will cost. I will say that one thing I noticed building these vehicles is that weapons are very expensive. And so it might behoove you to start off with more chassis and lower quality weapons. That's something to consider. But I was really, I really like that vehicle a lot. So I wanted to, to have it, and it'll be an option at the Nova Open for folks who come to that. There is Death Roller. This is my take on a Wolf Quad. I wanted to make a Wolf Quad that kind of fit my friend's dwarf gang aesthetic. So I found a 3D file for this kind of, it's not a mono wheel. It's like a tripod mono wheel. Like it's a person inside of a wheel that also has two side roller wheels. I'm realizing now that I probably should have purchased wheel sides on top of this. So I'm going to add that to the next time that I revisit this vehicle card. But it has a bolt gun as its equipment. And I went ahead and also purchased it the nitro burner upgrade because, got to go fast. So that is the take on that. Next, there is another, I wanted to do kind of some light vehicles that were custom. So this one is a tracked light vehicle called the Trash Can. It is a body that I 3D printed that is sort of a Sentinel that's based on the front cab of the rock grinder. And I slapped a Stormbolter on the side and I threw it on some tracks from a spare Caradron Breacher kit. I went ahead and gave it extra armor and a nitro boost in order to make it a little bit faster and make up for the fact that it was tracked and lost that inch of movement from that. And with the Stormbolter, it winds up being significantly more affordable than kind of the more expensive weapon options. So that's something to consider. We've got Swoop. I decided to print this jet bike model that I found on Knucklebones Miniatures page. And it's a really cool model, but I just didn't want to use it as a mounted model. I wanted to use it as a light vehicle. So I gave it a heavy weapon, and it is sort of a heavy weapon platform that's extremely fast and has the hover rule and therefore the anti-grav generator and such. So it's a really fun little guy, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he does on the tabletop at Nova. There is Bessie, which is one of the vehicles I converted years and years ago, and I'm in the middle of repainting, which is why it's all sort of bolt gun colored. I put a mortar in the back and a missile launcher on top. And it turned out that that's one of the built-in kind of modes that the Ridge Runner can do. And it's roughly the same size and has a similar lack of space in back for someone to actually stand. And so it kind of wound up being perfect as it counts as Ridge Runner. So that's what I'm using it as. And then next up is All Reliable, which is my Ridge Runner. And that is a standard build of that. So it's got the twin-linked heavy stubbers and the mining laser, which makes it quite expensive. But, it's a very useful bit of kit in terms of, taking out a lot of foes. You get those kind of heavy strength versus, the sort of DACA of the heavy stubber. So it is a very nifty vehicle in terms of putting out damage. Next up is another of the vehicles for my friends' squats. This time is a Goliath rock grinder. They have a mining laser on it currently, and I included a magnet for having a passenger fired weapon on the side. I went ahead and gave it the tire claws and the nitro booster in order to kind of keep it up with the rest of us in terms of speed and staying on course. Here is another of my vehicles that I just kind of made along the way. This one is a truck called Eddie, and it has a transport pad on the back, and it is equipped with a heavy bolter. And it is tracked. As you can see, it's actually a half track, but I figured with the half track, you kind of have to choose one or the other. And I decided to go with tracked because I hadn't given a heavy vehicle tracked yet. So that one will be, kind of a platform for carrying a lot of people. And then with a heavy bolter to do some damage on the side. And now this one is one of my personal favorites of the vehicles I've recently kit bashed. This is a Hanomag from Tamiya. That I have turned into a hover vehicle using those leftover pipe caps from the various Sector Mechanicus kits that I have been building and the Zone Mortalis kits that I've been building. I had just so many of these pipe caps, and they kind of looked perfect for being like hover thrusters. So I went ahead and put a bunch on the bottom of the vehicle and then one on the very back to be kind of the rear thruster and 2 on the sides to do the maneuvering. And I am really pleased with how it turned out. Obviously, I gave it a missile launcher up top, and with all of its upgrades, it is quite expensive, but it does sort of give you an idea of the extent of customization that's available. So I'm really excited to put that on the tabletop. Of course, I couldn't leave out a walker. I went ahead and threw a walker together. It has a heavy bolter, and it has a nitro booster in order to make it a little faster, and extra armor, because I thought that layering on some various bits of junk onto it would kind of give it the look of like sort of thrown together extra armor on a vehicle. So very happy with that one. And finally, we have my personal vehicle for the Cawdor gang that I am going to be running in my next campaign, Tanctuary. This is a ridge hauler, counts as. It is equipped with cargo to represent the large enclosed area, nitro booster in order to keep up with the racing speeds, and of course 2 flamers on the sides as befits House Cawdor. It's probably not the most efficient way to use this platform, but I, in most things, will choose the most narratively appropriate weapon option over what is most efficient, because I truly believe in House Cawdor's commitment to cleansing flames. And that is all of the vehicles I'm showing off today. I, of course, am making even more for the Nova Open. So anyone who comes to that, you'll get to see my vehicles up close and in person, and get to even play with them in your Ash Waste games and Apotheosis games. So, conclusions. I definitely think that the vehicle rules are very well thought out and clever in that they enhance the game without replacing the indoor combat of Zone Mortalis and Sector Mechanicus. It's just another way to play. I do think that Ash Waste's campaigns are an interesting whole other thing to get into, so I'm going to do an episode on the campaign itself very soon. But overall, I think that it's a good starting point, and I'm really hoping that we get a ton of custom stuff for the various gangs and new options war gear and upgrades wise, because I think that there is so much already baked in that is fun to experiment with and create. But I also know that the community will constantly push the boundaries of what can be used using these rules. So I'd love to see, for example, a generic super heavy vehicle to be, equivalent to the Ridge Hauler, but able to have different locomotion types and chassis, or different features. Like perhaps instead of trailers, it has extra thick tank armor or stuff like that. So I'm very excited to dig into all of this. I think that there will be people who actually go for more of a vehicle combat approach overall. I think that you could play almost a pure vehicles campaign using these rules and have a lot of fun. But of course, everyone, your mileage may vary. So that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks to everyone on Patreon who supports this show. You guys are the real MVPs. Sorry it's been a few weeks since my last episode. My kids being home from school this summer has seriously eaten into my podcasting time. I've had to choose between hobby time and podcast time, and it has just been hobby time mostly for me lately, which I think is probably best for my mental health, but it's not my preference necessarily. I like doing these shows, so I'm going to keep it up. And don't forget to check out the Dome Runners podcast. I just put out a new episode in July. There should be 2 in August, and I am just happy to be back in the rhythm with getting podcast episodes up. And of course, stay safe, and don't forget to change your paint water.